All right, we should be good to go. Welcome back, everyone, to yet another Moonshire Monday. And also, I am streaming from yet another different computer. For the past few streams, I've had to use a different computer. I built a new computer, and things have been changing. But now I'm on my Mac again. See, like we're using Mac this time to test things out. So we're gonna see how everything goes. We're gonna test the overlay. We're using my custom software, running on Mac this time, and I'm gonna show off some of the new features that I added to the level creation process, because I've been showing that off a lot recently. Is how you're gonna be able to design your own levels and put together custom maps and stuff. That's gonna be a really nice feature, and I have some new features to show off with that. Who's AFK? I just started, so thank you so much for being here. We got Sir Waddle and T Mackle, Future, and Robert, Dan, Upmost. Thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate that, and I appreciate all the familiar faces in the chat. I love seeing all you. BB Lewis, thank you so much for being here. Wolf, thank you. Hiryu, Mario, Emo, Upmost. New mod icon. Yeah, that actually is. That is new. Also, it's not showing up in the overlay, which is unusual because normally the badges do. Actually, they're not, because there's also the number 1 and number 2 badges. So there's a few more things I can add. So for anyone who doesn't know, the text that's displayed above my head is all custom code that I wrote myself to capture the text, capture the chat, and display it. It's 3 ads. I'm sorry about that. So what I wanted to show today is how, oh yes, Jam is still working. See, when I switched to the new computer, I was kind of worried that things wouldn't work with some of the features, but everything seems to be working so far. More people chatting. I mean, it's just the start of the stream. That makes sense. So I've been showing off how there's lots of features like the terrain editor. Oh shoot, there's a lot of weird quirks with Mac that I'm still getting used to. So you can go over into the terrain view. Here's a. It's so funny how I get sidetracked. How there's all these bugs. How these little details, the little grasses and cracks, they're still showing up on the screen when they should not. Wait, do I have a new computer? It's actually just my Mac from a while ago, but I wanted to try this out for streaming because my Windows was giving me a bit of problems. With getting the stream working, but things seem to be smooth so far right now on Mac. But what I was saying is that level creation is something that I want to be part of this game, because it makes the process easier for myself to make the levels, but it also makes it possible for other people to make mods or custom maps. Also, I'm still checking to make sure that my levels for audio are okay. From now on, I will attend every Moonshire Monday I can. I think it's my 3rd stream. Thank you for being here. I appreciate that. Paleris, thank you for being here. Let's see. So, this level design process, designing the elevation is just a matter of painting it in. If I wanted to paint in this corner, I would go to the elevation view and just paint these in like this. And then when I go back, it's filled in. So that's just how level creation is gonna work. Oh, there's some weird bugs still, clearly. Give me a shout out, please. Sure, Alistair. Thank you for being here. I appreciate that. So designing the levels is one thing, but then there's the question of how do you put levels together? Because these maps are just maps that you can wander around and reach the edges of. So what happens when you wander off the side of a level? And that's kind of where the map comes into play. Is I made this, I redesigned the UI again, and also there is this really simple map. And the point of this map, being so simple at first, is that it adapts with the size of the world. So right now we're in a world that is a grid of 4x4 levels, and we can see that we're in the upper left grid or cell. And when I walk down here to this room, this empty room, you can see that we've moved down to this cell, and also this cell unlocked. It keeps track of the cells that you've been to, the levels that you've been to. Whenever you load a new level, it checks the data for all this stuff to decide what needs to unlock or keep track of all that stuff. And it adapts. So in this example, we're using this 4x4 grid, but it does adapt with any size. So the way these levels work, with the goal of it being moddable, is the world is all packed into this one folder, world. And it's going to be possible for anyone to create their own world folder with their own set of JSON files and load that into the game, and it should load naturally. But in this world JSON, there's a few settings that we can consider. First is that you have the main settings, but the first big thing is that there are tiers. And this idea is that the map is multiple grids on top of each other. So like you're on the surface grid, but you could go underground and then you would be on the underground grid. So that's why I call these tiers. I have this tiers concept. And just a second ago, we were wandering around on the surface tier. And you can see that says columns 4x4. Could have the world procedurally generated? Yes, definitely. Definitely. Just because the maps, the levels in the game look like this. This is all of the level data that's needed for a level to run, is this JSON file. And actually, it is pretty long. But all that it is a series of cells and what values are stored at those cells. So like down here we have different terrain that's added to the... Actually, these are stickers. These are like the cracks or the grasses that are on the ground. And they just have an XY pairing. You have a lot of code. The file size is probably pretty big. Well, yeah. The thing is, when you say the word code, code tends to mean like the logic. That tends to mean like the Lua files, like this level.lua. And this level.lua file is one of the larger files. It's up to 775 lines, so it's pretty big. Camp.json. A JSON file is less code, and it's more just data. Because like you can look at all the things that are here. These are just properties. It just defines a bunch of fields and data. This isn't really logic. It's just a series of... you could basically store the stuff in a database. It's not really code. So even though this file is, 1,700 lines long, and really the final levels will probably be longer than that, maybe up to 3,000. It doesn't really matter because this code here, this is not really code. It's just a bunch of properties. And when the level loads, it takes all of this data, multiple thousands of lines, and it loads this data into the level.lua. Now this is the actual logic. This is where it accepts all of those args into this load map function, and it applies those to the level. The level is the current active instance that's like open, the current instance of the environment. So with that in mind, the levels themselves are just JSON, and then you have the world. So there's the levels and then the world. The world is meant to represent the grid of levels. So that's why it says like 4x4. And I'm going to demonstrate that I could change this to, let's say, 9x9. I'm going to save this, and we're going to load it again. Take a look at the map, because it should... Sorry, when I'm on Mac, I don't actually know how to easily change the size of these windows. I have to like manually do it. I'll come up with a better script next time. So first I'm going to turn off the collider flags. Then we're going to go over to the map. And there it is. So since I changed the dimensions of the world to be much different, now it's 9x9. You have 9 cells this way and 9 cells this way. And keep in mind that it still works. Like I'm up here in the upper left corner, and then I go down here. I'm gonna jump over this ledge and go down to this map. And now we're in this one. So the world will be able to scale with whatever layout the user comes up with. It's going to be very easy for really anyone to whip up one of their own world folders. So you have a world folder, I'll have some scripts to generate world JSONs where you can change the dimensions and add different tiers to it. Super Moonshire Maker. It kind of feels like that. What's good, bro? Just talking about more level design stuff. There's a lot of work that's going into making the level design process smooth. Because I've shown level design lots of times before in the past. But before, it felt very hacky, and that was kind of the wall that I was hitting. Is I want to collaborate with other people, other artists and other designers to help me with fleshing out these levels, because if I do it all myself, that's fine, that's what I was doing, but I think that things would go a lot smoother if I could onboard a couple other people to help with, like, even if it's just like setting up the initial layouts, because there's so much work to be done, and right now I'm focusing on making the tooling so smooth that it's really easy for people to make their own stuff. So the goal is that it's easier for me to make levels, easier for me to collaborate with other people to create levels, but also it's now possible for other people, like players, to create their own custom stuff, their own custom maps and their own custom levels. I think that all just makes it come together nicely. Almost at 150k subs? Yeah, I noticed that too, thank you. Why haven't I talked about AI yet? The stream, it just happens come up. But it's only a matter of time, to be honest. It's just not for coding, good for learning coding sometimes. But I mean, so, yeah, there's a lot to be said about that. But yeah, I don't want to go off on another AI tangent just yet. I'm sure that'll happen later. So I think that also while I have this game up and running, and I have this 9x9 grid, I can demonstrate how you can change which tier you're on. And I think that how I have it set up is that when I'm on the surface tier, it's snowing. And then when I go to the underground tier, it's raining. And like, it's the exact same maps. I literally just duplicated the layers, so they're the same tiers. But I changed it so that like on the underground layer, it's raining. So now I know that I'm on the underground layer, and the map changed. So we went underground, and the underground map still uses the 4x4 columns and rows. So that's why when we go underground, it changes to the different layout. And also you might have noticed that it retained which cell we were at. So we were at this like first column, second row, and then now when we're on the bottom, the underground area, we went to this cell as well. Will I make a special for 150k? Probably not. I'll probably just let it be. Coding is also about thinking. Yeah, so if someone was mentioning AI for coding, is that that's the big problem, is that it kind of solves the problem for you. I would not recommend AI for beginners or people learning, just because it kind of obstructs that learning process. Will players be able to play each other's levels? Yes, that is the end goal. So the way that would be possible is, I wonder if I can show this, because I'm still working off of like my Mac setup where I'm not used to how all this stuff works. Oh yeah, I really don't even have a good example of this. It's also tiny. I'm very sorry, small, but in the file, like, the game has the files that come packed in with the game. So like this world folder, when you run the executable, it's gonna have this world folder built into the game, so the default main levels that come with the game are gonna be built into the executable. But like you were saying, I want to be able to make it so other people can play other people's levels. And the way that would work is it would use the file system. So when you save your data, it's going to go into like the correct file. Like this is file 1, so it goes into the file 1 folder, and there's all of these different these different files with the save data. This is the old format, by the way. These are Lua files. I changed it to be JSON, but it's the same idea. And when it comes to the point where you want to load other people's worlds, it really is just going to be, actually I could probably demonstrate this too, because I have it set up, is that you're going to be able to have a worlds folder. And again, I'm sorry, it's so small, very, very small. But inside this worlds folder, you can place custom worlds. Actually, I definitely can demonstrate this. Okay, so I'm going to try and demonstrate this in a way that's not really annoying. It's hard because it's so small. This is a bad demonstration, but I'm going to take the world folder that's in the game currently, and I'm just going to copy it over. I'm going to change it to Test world. Okay. And actually, I'm gonna copy it again. And I'm gonna call this one Kyle map. Okay. So now I have 2 worlds, test world and Kyle map, and they're in this worlds folder. And now in the game, I actually have the option to warp to worlds. And look, it shows up. It shows the different maps that are available to warp to. So this is the debug menu, by the way. And I have this option where you're able to warp to the different maps that like I'm testing with. And also, I added this support where you can go over to this worlds tab, and it shows all of the worlds that you have available. You have the default built-in world, and then you also have all of the custom ones as well that I added to that to this folder up here. And it should update in real time. If I take this Kyle map and I paste it again, I'm gonna call this one banana. I think if I close this and I open it back up, yeah, there it is, banana. So it actually does read what folders are available. And just to confirm, or just to clarify what these are literally the same world folder that exists as the built-in game. I go into banana. It's the same layout that the world folder that's built in uses. So when you share and play other people's levels or other people's worlds, it's going to load their world folder into this folder, and then it will appear in this layout, you know. So that's how it's going to, that's how it's currently able to be navigated. But I'm sure I'm going to have a better like process where maybe there's like an NPC that's specifically for mods or specifically for playing custom maps, or there can be an actual flow. But right now, while like testing, there's just this UI for manually changing between them. And I think if I were to go to banana, okay, it's not going to look any different. It's the same exact world that's built into the game. But here, let's actually change it. Let's actually change it. So if I go into banana, and let's open up one of the levels. Let's open up camp.json. So this is camp.json in banana specifically. And let's make it so that the wind is very fast and the snow is very extreme. So now, if I save that and close that, now I shouldn't even have to close the game. If I warp back to the default map, this is what the default world looks like, where it's snowing and there's a little bit of wind. If I warp over to worlds and then banana, it's now using the very high wind, very high snow value. So it actually did warp us to the custom world, because keep in mind, this data that I just edited comes from the save file system. It doesn't come from the executable. It doesn't come from the game itself. It comes from your own computer. This is where the save data exists, and all I did was I placed a new world folder inside of this one, and it showed up in the list and I was able to navigate to it. So how much have I missed? Not much. We're just chatting about custom levels and custom worlds. One weird quirk about about Mac is that you can't right-click to change views. I'm trying to right-click on the window behind, but it's not working. I have to left-click on it. A few questions, yeah, basically. But I really like this customization. I really like how flexible this is. And I think it's going to be a really, really nice thing to have when I'm collaborating with people. And also, like, once this is available for people to try out and make their own custom levels, I think people are going to come up with layout ideas that I haven't come up with yet. I'm playing Galaxy as you speak. Awesome. I love that game. I love Galaxy and I love Galaxy 2. I got 120 stars on both. You recommend Lua for game dev over JS Canvas? They're both fine. My recommendation is to try out both of them because they're both free. The flow is going to be similar. They're both using a lightweight framework. And I always recommend just using the one that you like the best. any videos on the way. The only videos I have on the way are I am trying to come up with a better process for taking these streams and converting them into content. And one of those first steps is migrating over to this Mac, because this Mac that I'm streaming off of right now is much more performant than my Windows PC. Even though I just built the Windows PC, the video card is a huge bottleneck. So the Mac has much better specs in terms of that stuff. So I'm going to try seeing if things go more smoothly on the Mac. And also, by the way, now that we're talking about that, I'm going to try recording the stream while it's active. Start recording. Okay. So I just now clicked start recording on the stream, and I'm going to see if the quality changes at all. I'm going to see if the quality changes at all with like the performance or anything. Which also, the performance on this map shouldn't be very good because I have so many snow particles. I could actually make it worse. Because I made it so that the way the weather works is you can have all of these particles on screen at once. So if I was running this on my Windows machine, I am certain that the game would start lagging by now because there's so many particles on screen. This is not really a setup that I would want people to actually set up, but you can do it. I have experience with JS, so that I will try that first in Lua. Yeah, I'd say that's a good idea. I also have JS experience. The thing is, one thing you'll notice when you're working with game engines, or really working with any sort of software, is that the language that you use doesn't really matter that much. I mean, it does matter, but I'm saying that you'll probably get used to it no matter what language it is. When I interviewed for like Microsoft, I interviewed using Java, even though they don't use Java at the company. They use C# and TypeScript and all kinds of like web stuff. So why was I interviewing for the job? Like I went into the interview and did all my coding problems with Java. The reason why is because it doesn't really matter. Like Java and C# are so similar that it really doesn't make that much of a difference. The distance between JavaScript and Lua is also not that substantial. If I pull up my Lua code right now and go over to level, and you read through what this code is doing here, I think that you'd be able to figure it out. I think that if you have experience working with JavaScript, you can read through this code here and kind of read it not that big of a problem. It's kind of like how Spanish speakers can kind of sort of read Italian because the languages are kind of similar. One of my teachers in high school was a Spanish teacher, or was like a Spanish major in college, and she went to Italy, and she said that she was able to chat with people who were speaking Italian while she was speaking Spanish, but like they had to adapt. They had to like figure out different quirks because the languages aren't the same, obviously, but they're similar enough that there was enough overlap that they could still communicate. And it's the same with these programming languages. I'd say it's even more noticeable with these programming languages because it's still English. This is still English that we are seeing here. It's just the syntax is slightly different for Lua versus JavaScript. I do think Lua is a little bit more clean. JavaScript is old school, more dedicated to web formats. Like the big benefit of JavaScript is that it works with web browsers. And with game development, I wouldn't say that's much of the focus. More of the focus is just like clean code because you have really big code bases. And you can still make the game work in a browser. Like these Love2D games, they do work in browsers as well if you like write the code that is necessary to make it work in a browser. For example, if you go to necrozone.com, which is a lovely, lovely website that I made myself, this is a Love2D game that I made, and it runs in browser. Whoa, I said no, and it still did the sounds. But this is the same framework, same engine. I mean, it's the same framework. When we say the word engine, that means a lot of different things. I like to say the word framework in terms of like the coding platform because Lua and Love2D is very lightweight compared to an engine like Unity or Godot. Those are more heavy and more inclusive of like large-scale features. The Lua runtime is super small and lightweight compared to the browser. Exactly, is that the Lua runtime is like the middleman that makes it run anywhere. So it's running in a browser. The game itself is written in Lua. It's compiled using a bunch of like crazy code that converts it into web compatible format. And then there's just like I don't know, some kind of like HTML window that renders it all. I would definitely choose Lua. I would choose the one that you're most familiar with to start. Or I would choose no, actually, let me take that back. I would choose the one that you like the best. I really don't think that you should choose based on the language. I think that you should try them all out. I think that the framework you choose is more important than the language. Because I didn't choose Lua, I chose Love 2D. I tried out all the different frameworks and I liked Love 2D the best, and I stuck with it. I didn't choose Love 2D because I liked Lua and I'm going to find an engine that uses Lua. That's not what I did. I think that you guys, if you're interested in figuring out what to do, you should download whichever engine or framework seems interesting to you. Don't worry about the language. You can pick up on that's the point, is you can pick up on the language very quickly. The framework and the engine, that's the part that's unique. Are you developing your game full-time or do you have another job? And what year were you born in? I was born in 96. I'm 29. And I am doing this full-time, although calling it full-time was a bit misleading because I don't make money from it yet. I was a full-time software developer for a long time, and I saved up enough money to like sustain myself while I get this game out. But yeah, calling it full-time is a bit... I don't like to mislead people into thinking that just like making games for fun is enough to sustain yourself, because it really isn't. Even with a YouTube channel, my YouTube channel doesn't... like, I know I don't post very often. I bet that if I were to be more dedicated to like sponsors or putting out regular content, making things a bit more, having more value in terms of the videos, I could do that. But game development I haven't made any money from it yet. Didn't he say no sharing ages like when he first joined the streams? Yeah, you're right. But I'd say that I am an exception because I'm the streamer, and also I'm the exception because I'm a full-blown adult. That rule is mainly in place to protect the kids, to protect the people who are under 18. There's no reason to be sharing your ages in the comments, in the chat, because there are some creeps out there who like to prey on people like that. Kyle here is obviously not 10, exactly. You know, some would say it's not obvious. Like, I'm 29, but I don't think I look 29. Like, I think that we can agree that I look a bit younger than that. Can you check out my Love to APK repo? Well, sure, send it to me after stream. I don't think I want to check it out right now, just because I don't know what it is. I'm sorry. I'm speaking very quickly. I need to slow down and not stutter as much. That's one of my big problems, that I stutter a lot. I'm implementing my game while working as a teacher, and my son was just born a few days ago. Wow, that's awesome. I hope I can push through. Wish you all the best, man. That is so exciting. Congrats. Congrats on all those big moves in your life. That is very, very cool. Also sounds very chaotic, very stressful. LOL, I stutter a lot as well. I mean, yeah. I thought you were 21 to 24. I'd say that's kind of where I look, but I've been working a lot longer than that. I got a shield. Yeah, that's really exciting for you. The best advice I can have is, if you're trying to push through on making a game or building up any skill, this is advice for anyone, is that it's less about motivation and more about discipline and routine. It's especially, I can't even imagine when you have like a wife and kids and a full-time job on top of all that stuff. You only have so many hours in the day, and you are not going to find a period where you feel motivated to work on your game and you also have time to work on your game. That's not going to happen. Instead, you might be able to say, every day I can make room for 1 hour at the end of the day, or like when I wake up, or it could even be a half an hour, just a half an hour to work on pixel art, or half an hour to do some coding, and make that part of your routine. Because for me, there are days where I don't feel motivated at all, but this is so ingrained in my routine that I like, this is just what I do every day. I just work on the game. I work on software. I work on code, because like that's just what I do. I identify myself as a software developer, and so I develop software. There's not really any question about it. The motivation comes and goes, but the discipline stays. The routine stays no matter what. You have no 0 days. Is Moonshire Monday basically a discipline? Yes, it definitely is. Because every single stream, including today, I go through excuses in my mind to cancel stream, to shorten it, to kind of like put half effort into it. I always try to come up with mental gymnastics to like make my life easier. I think that's a natural human thing. JJK, hi, welcome in. I think it's normal to try and talk yourself out of doing work. It's like procrastination. But the stream is fixed. Every Monday, 10 a.m. Central, I do the stream without exception. And since that's the case, like there's no mental gymnastics to be had. Even though my brain starts trying to convince myself, oh, maybe you should sleep in today, because that's what I wanted to do. I was up very late last night setting up this Mac, and I woke up, I'm like, man, I really don't want to stream right now because I only got like 4 or 5 hours of sleep. I would love to sleep in, but this is just the routine. You don't want to be here with us? I definitely want to be here with you. But what I mean is I also want to be in my bed sleeping because I'm really, really tired. You have no 0 days. I hope not. I mean, you're right. The thing is, it's really... You'd be surprised. The no 0 days applies to every aspect of your life if you're working towards a goal. Because it's so easy just to say, I'm not feeling it today, I'll do it tomorrow. And then suddenly you're like a few days in, and you've been doing that for a few days. You really can't allow yourself to do that. Discipline is really important no matter what you try to achieve, in my opinion. Help you stay focused on what you're doing. Exactly. Because you can't control motivation. A lot of people rely on motivation. In fact, I used to rely on motivation too, where it's like, I'm going to work on the game when I feel motivated to. Well, if you do that, eventually you're going to lose motivation because, especially with a game, the progress is most noticeable at the beginning when you start out, because you make a lot of progress at first and then it starts to plateau. It starts to slow down really slow because you have to iterate on your old ideas. You have to fix bugs. You have to improve on all these different things. Can I help with music? I'm actually working on the music myself. I meant in a security context. What was the original said? You have no 0 days. Oh, well, sure, yeah, in a security context. That's definitely true. I would say that's true for live services as well. That was a problem I had at Microsoft, is that I worked on a live service, which is just like a cloud service, something that anyone can access at any time, like a website. And you have no 0 days. You have to always be on. Your service is always up. Like, can you imagine if YouTube had a 0 day? That would be ridiculous. That's just not an option. So you have to say it the same thing with your game development, is that it's not an option to have a 0 day. Otherwise, you're gonna have too many 0 days. I can't discipline in game dev and pixel art, but in working out, yes. I think that if you can do it in working out, then you are capable of doing it in game dev as well. I bet that skill does transfer. Is the audio capturing? That's another thing that I was having trouble with, is that I think it is. Well, there's no sound effects for a lot of this stuff. Yeah, I can see the audio capturing. At some point, I would like to try and get Moonshire working in this this browser setup. The thing is, I kind of want to wait until Love 12 comes out, because Love 12 is going to come out soon, and it took a lot of like customization to get this running, because here I'm actually going to pull it up. Love 2D JS, not JSON, JavaScript. I wonder if there is a non-archived version of this. You're probably looking for this one. Okay, here we go. Yeah, that's the problem, is that like this project hasn't been updated for a few years now. That's pretty small too. Let's make that bigger. Also, I'm not signed in. That's kind of a bummer. Okay, love.js for love 11.5. And actually it's funny because I use this. I think it is for 11.6. Or maybe it's not. I'm trying to think of something. I might be mixing that up with something else. But the whole thing is, this repo, or something like this repo, there's probably other alternatives, is necessary to run the game in a browser. And like, you have all this code here. It's only right now compatible with Love like 11.5 or 11.6 maybe. When Love 12 comes out, it's not going to work. And so I don't want to put a bunch of effort porting the game to web only for Love 12 to come out, and then I have to redo all of this stuff. So I kind of want to wait until that's done. Meant 0 day as in the time period a software vulnerability is exploited. Yeah, exactly. I think, yeah, I think I get that at now. It's like I was saying with YouTube. It would be ridiculous if there was a 0 day for YouTube. Oh yeah, we should probably... Let's tone down the weather. Let's tone down the weather. Is Love to be free? Yes, it's free and open source. I'm like, how do I change this? Oh, the reason it's doing that is because I actually changed it through the code. I changed it through the banana. So I can change it back by actually just warping back to the default map. Warp, world's default. There we go. Now we're back to normal. The rain looks really nice. Thank you. I think I can show that editor in real time. Weather. There we go. So, one thing I like about this new weather system is it's really flexible with what particles you have active at a time, and it also adapts with the wind. This is my favorite part. Is that like if I turn on a bunch of snow, you can see that it's going to, well, I guess my mirror, my camera's mirrored, but it's following the wind. So I have the wind set to 40, and like I can bump this up, and you can see that the snow is getting faster. So that's with the snow speed maxed out. But I can also move it back to the left, or have 0. So like that, now it's coming straight down roughly, and that looks pretty nice too, if I'm being honest. It might look a little bit thick, but then you can change the wind to push it to the left. There we go. Yes, there's a lot of customization with this. But can you tell there's wind if there's no snow/rain? Is that I'm gonna have to adapt that wind concept into more than just the particles. For example, the grass blades that are on the ground, they sway with the wind, so it would make sense that they also like adapt to that. Because you can see that the wind particles are moving to the left, but the grass is kind of swaying to the other direction. And same with the fog. You can see the fog, which is that like texture that's kind of slowly drifting across the screen. The fog is going to the upper right, while the snow is going to the down left. So like I would have to just account for all of those different scenarios where wind would be a factor, and implement it in that way. In the future, when I actually have money, should I donate in the stream or like HIO or something? If you're able to, I'd love that. There's memberships and there's people do super chats sometimes, but any support, I welcome it. Thank you. Not my life. No, don't donate your life savings. Only donate a little bit if you have a little bit. No, like I'll be okay regardless. But what's the story of Moonshire? The story is still kind of adapting. So the Steam demo that's like available right now to play, it says like, oh, the Moonshire is in peril, and so you go to a distant world to find a solution. But I think I'm going to be simplifying it. The funny thing about the story is that I have all these ideas, and when I started the project, I had this really ambitious story plan where it was gonna span like multiple planets, where you like Moonshire was gonna be one planet. It had all these maps, and you would go to a different world, a different planet that was a bunch of other maps, and it was gonna be so diverse and so big. But classic game development cycle is that it just doesn't work out. It's too intense, too much content, too big of a scope. And so I scaled it back. It's just one planet. We only need one planet. We don't need multiple planets. That's ridiculous. And then it started scaling back more and more and more. Where like this map system I have, where I have 9 by 9 maps. Like this is a lot of maps. The final game, I don't know how many there's gonna be. For a while, I was planning for it to be 5 by 4, which is not very many. I might bump it up to like 7 by 5 or something. I'm not sure. But regardless, is the scope of the game is going to determine what the story is what I'm getting at. The reason why I started talking about that is because I had this grand story, but then the scope of the game was shrinking, And if you have a small game, you can't have a big story, is how I see it. Or you can, but that's when it starts to become a little bit awkward. I don't want the story to become cringe or cringy, because if that, like, that happens when your story is too ambitious or too serious, but the content itself is not really there to back it up. The Moonshire Galaxy, hundreds of planets. If there's like procedural generation for maps, that could potentially be a thing. I can relate about cringe stories. I think everyone can. I think it's one of those things where if you look back at the stuff that you created like a year ago, or like worse, like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you look back on that stuff and it's like, oh, what was I thinking? It's so bad. What have I been playing lately? I've been playing RuneScape. I've been playing old school RuneScape. I haven't really been playing anything else, just casually. I would recommend starting with simple projects, creating Space Invaders, a simple platform game, definitely. I'd say that's another big thing, is that people get overly ambitious to start with their game development process, and it's harder than you'd think. It's not a matter of like drag player into game and then it moves. It really is complex, especially if you're using a framework like Love2D. Love2D or Monogame, or like Phaser, or any of the lightweight frameworks like libgdx maybe too. They're all a little bit harder to use than something like Unity or GameMaker, because there's no like editor. It's all just code, and then you have to use external tools to fill in the gaps. It can be kind of annoying. Can I see the UI menu? Yes. I actually did just kind of change how that's organized. So I still have to work on the colors, but let me give myself some items. So the goal is that in this upper section we have the stackable resources, and in this bottom section we have like the gear, the actual items. Lives a pretty cheap life, exactly. So then over here on this panel, this is the other thing, is that I had too many of these like pause menu panels. That's a lot of gear. Yeah, I mean, it's more like Zelda items, where like at the end of a Zelda game you have like a few dozen items. I'm trying to create everything myself for a game. I already made a JSON parser, and I'm already currently creating a collision system. That's awesome. That's really cool. Just keep in mind that when you create everything yourself, you are signing up for a longer journey. But you're also signing up for being more knowledgeable about the whole process. For example, you said you made a JSON parser. Some people would argue that the time spent writing a JSON parser is time not spent working on the game, because there exist JSON parser libraries online. There's open source libraries. I think I don't know if I can't remember if mine's custom or not. I think that mine is not custom. JSON. Actually, I think mine is custom. I think I also wrote my own. It was like a few months ago, so I don't even remember doing it. But the thing is, there are already JSON parsers that exist online, and if your goal is to have a functional finished game, some might say it's a bad waste. Not a bad waste. It's not. I don't even want to say bad. I just want to say it's a different use of time. Where if you want to reach the end goal, it would be a wiser use of time to spend the time working on the game and then use a JSON parser. But also, when you write the JSON parser yourself, you have a very firm understanding of it. You have a very firm familiarity of it, and you'll learn from the process way more than if you just like use someone else's code. What's your stance on using AI for coding? ChatGPT wanting to add 5 more variables and 2 helper methods to fix the bug. I think AI for coding has gotten a lot better in the past like year than it has been, as long as you're using like an AI agent that's built into the code base. But the thing about AI agents is you have to treat it as if it's like a different person that you're working with. So if you're learning how to code, having an AI agent is really damaging for your learning process, because it does all the hard work for you. And genuinely, I worry that we're going to reach a point soon, if not already, where people are going to stagnate in terms of their like coding abilities or their software familiarity, because you don't really need to. You can get away with not knowing anything anymore. You can kind of get away with just typing prompts and getting code, and for a little bit, you'll be fine. But as soon as the project requires any sort of intuition where you have to have like a higher level understanding of the software, or there's bugs that the code can't fix, or performance issues, or organizational issues, or there's so many things that you just need to have this lived experience to operate it properly. And what I'm getting at is I do think AI is useful. I think that we are going to see AI tooling as part of the game development process a lot more, especially with code. But I also think that with that comes the problem of people being less familiar with their code. Agree, don't spend too much time doing everything from scratch. Seemingly simple things are surprisingly easy, complex. Yeah, exactly. It's like that's the whole point of Love 2D. Like Love 2D as a framework is meant to be a lightweight series of functions. If I go to, whoops, I'm sorry, I need to go over to main. All these like love.load, update, and draw. These are framework functions, and they're pretty lightweight where you just provide all the context, and it fills in all the gaps. When is your birthday without the year? So you can congratulate. I was born on June 20th. Hope everyone have a good Moonshire Monday. Thank you so much, Allfather. Thank you for stopping in and thank you for the donation. Appreciate that. Sounds like the Law and Order soundtrack. Yeah, it does a little bit. It's yeah, the Metroid, Super Metroid soundtrack. ChatGPT helped me learn to use Love.js very quickly, but I did have to do the troubleshooting on my end for 2 hours. I think it is helpful for getting to the final product. I'm with you. It's such a hard balance to reach because some might say you would learn better with Love.js just doing it on your own and like overcoming all the challenges yourself. But at the same time, it's so... I don't know, man. I'm gonna move on. I shouldn't go off on AI tangents anymore. But long story short, it is useful. I do use it in my code base. I use it for debugging and for like drafting up initial things, and for comments. I use it for comments a lot. But for learning, I really like. I still am not convinced it's useful for learning. I'm really not useful, or I'm really not convinced that someone can use an AI as part of their like process and it turns out good for them. I really just think back to my time in college when I was in CS school and I was given these really hard coding problems. And I just remember slamming my head against the wall for hours trying to figure it out. And I was just like going through the logic over and over and over again. And then eventually, after hours of doing it, I would eventually figure it out. I would eventually write this really jank piece of Java code that made the thing work. And if AI existed back then, 10 years ago, if AI existed back then, there's no doubt in my mind that when I got stuck and started slamming my head against the wall, I would have just asked AI for help. There's no doubt in my mind that's what I would have done. And it would have told me the answer. It would have showed me what I was missing. It would have showed me what I was missing. And I don't think that would have been good for me. I think that would have been I think that wouldn't have been good. Because that process of figuring it out, like I internalized that. And when you are shown the answer, when you are given the answer, when the answer is explained to you, it's not internalized as much as when you have to challenge yourself and uncover the answer yourself. Learning takes effort. If you don't put any effort in, you won't learn. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah. I'll say a year ago, AI seemed pretty good for learning because it spit out a bunch of bad code that you'd have a lot of problems to troubleshoot and fix. That's actually kind of a funny point, and there's some truth to that. I think that AI as a learning tool could potentially be useful, and the truth is, I do use it as a learning tool. I ask it questions all the time. If there's a new like service I don't know how to use, or like I'm using an open source library, I'll ask it to give me the gist. But I recognize that by doing that, I'm robbing myself of the experience of like learning it myself. And especially for newcomers, especially for people who are within their first few years of development, I really think it's just a net negative if you were to have some robot give you the answer to these things. I use AI only like practice fixing bugs and asking questions about codings. AI is a great learning tool, especially for well-documented topics and code. It's a great search engine. It's a great knowledge source. You're saying learning tool. That's the part I'm still hung up on. It's like, is Google a learning tool? Because you can type any question into Google and it will tell you the answer. But is Google a learning tool? I wouldn't say that. It's just a search database. And AI agents, I kind of feel like are the same thing. It's like, it's a great tool for giving you the answer. It's a great tool for giving you information and providing you context or looking things up. But a learning tool, like that's the term that I'm still not quite sold on. I bet there's a way to use it in a way that does help with learning. Game recommendation for everyone looking for a calm challenge with beautiful views. Karen. Oh, I heard about Karen. Who was I watching play it? Was it Donkey? I think I watched Donkey play it. I use the exact same way as you do, and I agree that using it while learning is tricky. Yeah, is that there are times when it is necessary to look up the answers. Like, I use Google as an example. While I was learning coding, I was Googling questions all the time. But the thing about Google is that it was just, I was asking it very specific questions. I was talking about this before, how there's this philosopher, Socrates, and he would teach people with the Socratic method, where rather than giving people information, he would ask them questions. So if you ask me, like, how do you do a loop in Lua? I would say, what does the documentation say? That's what I would say. That's like a Socratic response. It's a response that guides you towards finding the solution yourself. And that sort of response is really helpful because it guides you in the right direction while still requiring you to put in the hard work. I built a set on game component systems and I created class skills describing how to use them. AI has been able to create small game concepts super fast like that. I believe it. It's very powerful. It's very powerful. But I worry that if someone inexperienced were to do that, would they become experienced eventually? Or would they stagnate? Would they become too reliant on the technology, where they are capable of producing code, but they don't actually understand their product? And, you know, maybe that's not an issue. Maybe it's actually okay that products are becoming that way, but I think that's kind of a bad direction for development to go. I think it's important for developers to understand their code on a deep level, and there's no way to accomplish that without challenge. I'll see you guys soon. Gonna work on my project. Awesome. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for stopping in, Allfather. Reading documentation is a skill on itself. Definitely, yeah. Allfather equals Shallowcate's father. No, I don't think so. I really don't think so. He is steering their thoughts so you don't fully find it yourself. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's kind of the thing. So what I'm getting at is I imagine that there is a way to use AI that is similar to that, where somehow the AI knows what is actually helpful for a human's learning process. Because like a teacher, if you go to school, a teacher doesn't just give you all of the answers. Like when you're in a lecture, sometimes they just tell you things. They give you like the history or the background. But a lot of the learning process when you're in school is you're giving like problems or practice problems or a test. You know, that's the kind of thing that helps you with learning. It would be ridiculous if like the teacher was just a thing that you could ask questions to and then give you the answers. Like a teacher is not just like a thing that regurgitates information. It teaches you. And teaching, I think, is the part that AI is not quite, well, maybe it is. I was gonna say it's not quite there on. It might be, but I don't think people are using it in a way that's suitable for teaching. I think that people are using it in a way that's suitable for reaching a final product quickly. But that's the thing, is that if you want to learn, getting to a final product kind of conflicts with learning. If you want to learn, you have to challenge yourself and do the hard stuff. And snow piling up would be a good feature. That would be a good feature. I think I can actually show something like that. if I go over to get the shovel, oh, I don't think I can show that. I don't think I can show that. I was gonna show how you can add terrain to the area, but I don't think I can show anything other than dirt right now. But it's gonna be easily possible to add snow in the same way that you can add dirt. For some reason, like I've been changing the UI, so I can't actually swap that around right now. Shall is the only reason I like Mondays. Wow, that's really nice of you to say. Thank you. You have to adjust your prompt to make the AI teach. Yes, you would. You would. You would have to be very mindful about how you're using it to make sure that the responses it's giving you aren't too good, like aren't too, you know. You wouldn't want your teacher to turn into a machine that just regurgitates information. You want your teacher to teach you. And I don't know if people are going to responsibly do that, because you would have to tell the AI, hey, I don't actually want you to give me the answers. I don't want you to actually solve the problem. I want you to teach me. And by teach, that still doesn't mean give you the answer. You think the NPCs get like audio and monologues in the update? I think I started working on that. Well, there's not gonna be any audio. There's definitely not gonna be any like voiceover or noises that the character makes. But I have the this is the localization, although I don't have the dialogue localization in this project yet. Did I add multiplayer support yet? Not exactly, but I did improve the efficiency of testing it. So let me show this. Where is it? Here it is. Okay, so we're gonna test that out. If you press the H key, jam, definitely jam. Excuse me, my throat's a little bit stuffy. Talking about multiplayer. Sorry, 1 second. This is kind of awkward. Okay, there we go. So if I press H, I can spawn other characters. And this was the first big step towards multiplayer, is being able to have multiple like player objects on screen at once. And I think it's actually starting to make the game lag a little bit. That's kind of bad. But it is going to be possible to have multiple mobs on screen now. Multiple player objects. Because that was the big problem with the old code base, is that it was just the one player. There was always just one player object, and that would never be able to change. And now it's set up to where like the mobs are their own individual entities. The player simply controls a mob, and so, you know, you can spawn multiple of them into the scene. And that's also why, if I close this down, I can go over to... Whoops. I can go over to player. And we can change this to slime. Oh, is this gonna work? This might just break the game. But the goal is that I should be able to... Yeah, it didn't work. It didn't work. I still need to update the game a little bit in order to support that. But you're already able to do that. I showed that on a previous stream. Isn't that fun with game development? Is that whenever you implement a feature, sometimes that feature will just like break later. Not because I changed anything. I didn't change anything about this mob type thing. But I've just made so many changes to the code itself that now old features are starting to not work. What's the blue screen? Yeah, the blue screen is a crash. So what happened is I tried to start the player mob as a slime, and we got a crash. And it actually does show us some debug information. It's really small. It says there's no frame for X1, Y4. Why would there be? Oh. Yeah. Yeah, this is a problem, actually. I need to get rid of some of these. Because, like, yeah, like, this one, there is no roll. Yeah, I need to get rid of this. This is bugged. Get rid of this. Yeah, because it said that there's no, row 4, which is true, there isn't. So let me, I think that's all I needed to do. Yeah, it worked. It worked. So now we're a little bit slime. We're a slime. We're going to, there we go. Yay! Okay, now we are slime. We have entered slime mode. There we go. I love being a slime. But yeah, that's just how the players work now. Is that you have different mob types. You have the slime, and you have the player mob, and any of them can be attached to the player. The animation is so good. Thank you. I animated this guy myself. At first, I was using like a paid asset pack slime character, but it just wasn't very good, so I made my own. And I animated him completely on my own. That should be on a shirt. We are slime. Wasn't paying attention because I was coding. What happened? Oh, we just turned into a slime. You know how it goes. Whee. I don't think I can jump up here. Oh, I can. I can. This song playing across slime jumping around is just so weird. I think that's the only mob that we can transform into at the moment. The other ones are probably still in progress. Okay. Let's talk about what it's like to make new levels. Because in the game, I was showing that you can like walk down to go to another level. Let's add another one of those. So in levels, I have camp and desert. Let's duplicate camp. I'm going to rename this. What should I rename it to? I'll call it forest. Okay. And I'm going to get rid of all of the cell data. It's actually a lot of cell data. I guess I'll just manually do this. There's definitely in the future there's going to be an easier way to like generate these files. Right now I'm doing it manually. Okay, so forest.json. So now this file exists. This level exists, and I'll change it to rain. No, we'll leave it that, and we'll make it really intense with really intense wind. And we'll make it really left wind. Okay, so now we have the Windex, and we have the forest. Now over in world, so I added this new map to the levels folder. And now I just need to add it to the correct grid. So we have this grid right here. I'm going to put it actually at B1. So the idea is the grid is set up where the column is the letter, like A is the column, so B is the second column, and this is the row. So B1 would be to the right 1 cell, down 0, you know. So now that's part of this. I should be able to run the game, and when I go to the right, it should transition me over to the new map. Even player clones like from Captain Toad, that would be awesome. Yeah, that's a cool idea. I need to turn off these colliders by default. Okay. So the goal is that I should be able to go off to the right. And here we are. We can see that it has the really intense snow and the left wind that we added. And that should be it. So now that we're here, we can go into the edit mode and we can start adding in our terrain. Now this is some slime music. I think we can agree on that. Will you be able to create custom NPCs in the level editor? The level editor is for levels. I do want to add custom NPCs, custom weapons, custom items. I want to add lots of customization. I don't know how that stuff is going to be customizable yet, though. And we can go back. We can see the ground that we added. Yeah, this is a really good one. I really wish that when I right-click on the window, it brings me back to it. Oh, here's another feature I wanted to show is, here, I need to go back over to the... Oh, actually, no, it's not going to save my progress. If I leave this map and I come back, it's going to delete it all. Yeah, it deleted it all. Uh-oh. So I need to set up... I don't know how I could do that. Set up autosave or something. What I was going to show is that if I go over here... Yeah, there we go. And I get this this sign. This is the border sign. I showed this last week, but it was kind of broken. And how this works is you can go to the terrain view and draw in X's like this. And then when I go back to the regular view, it's a blocker, and it's a foreground blocker. So this is meant to be like the border of the level. So I can go into the terrain view and I can like add this around the edge. Like this. There we go. And it looks like this. Oh, that looks bad. Oh, is that a bug? It's a bug. I have it set up where the X is supposed to bleed out into the next cell over, because I can actually show this. There's a flag for out about camera. Oh. Okay, I think I broke things. Yeah, let's just go back to And let's go back to being a hero. Can I make new image files programmatically? Yeah, you can, because image files are just data. But the bigger they are, the more complex it is. Pixel art, definitely yes. A 3x1 image? So this is the thing. A 3x1 image, you don't need an image for that. That's just a rectangle. Just use love.graphics.rectangle. There are lots of places in my code where I draw rectangles rather than drawing images. .rectangle. Let's find a good one. This is the loading bar. That makes sense. Draw a rectangle outline. Oh, when it's I see. When it's a rectangle. I need it to be 3x1, have 3 different colors. So it's 3 pixels, each a different color. Even that, I still don't know if I guess you could use that. But programmatically, I still think that you're approaching this in a strange way. I wouldn't consider it as programmatically generating image files. That would be the last option I go for. You're talking about... It sounds like you're just trying to change the colors out, am I right? Because you said a 3x1 image, so that's going to be 1 color here, 1 color here, and 1 color here. am I missing something? Because I'm still not sure I understand, like, what the end goal is, because if you want, I can explain that, what I want to do with that. I think I would like to know, because I'm just curious what the purpose of this object here is. I'm trying to kind of even predict what it would be. But my point is, there's no part of my code where it creates image files. There are image files that the game uses and that the game draws, but it never creates an image file. I would only do that if I was making like a custom character creator where I wanted people to be able to draw in like custom characters, and even that, I would probably save it in a, I don't know. Do I use AI sometimes to help you in coding part? Yeah, I do. I use it for debugging and for comments and logic, and yeah, I use it pretty regularly. The AI agents are pretty good these days. But one thing I want to point out is, if the only thing that you're considering here, the only problem is like the color swap, like you need these colors to be flexible. I still wouldn't work on generating the image. If I have an image that's only 3 colors, white, gray, and dark gray, I can programmatically change those colors based on those 3. It's a mapping system. I can send a demo on... Well, you don't need to send a demo. If I have an image that's only 3 colors, white, gray, and dark gray, I can programmatically change those colors based on those 3. So what you're describing is exactly what I do in my game. Exactly what I do in my game. I can show it real quick. But I'm doing it in a slightly different way. Where can I show this? This would be under sprites, under UI, under inventory, and panel. Okay. So we have this panel sprite here, and you can see that it's purple. It's got some purple shades and some white shades, and in the game itself, if I were to run, we can see that panel right here, but also when I go to this screen, it turns green. And it changes it from purple to green by doing a palette swap. And it sounds like the goal is similar to what you're doing, where you're trying to define the 3 colors in an image and take that, but that's not what I'm doing. Instead, I'm using the code because if I pull up... Give me 1 second. I'm going to pull up the sprite and open it up in a sprite. So you can see the hex value right down here for any color. Every color has a hex value associated with it. So I just took note. I have this hex value, I have this hex value, and this hex value. And then I went into the code. I have color. And here they are. So what happens is the code is going to look specifically for these hex values in that panel. The shader actually goes through this sprite and it searches for those hex code values. And if it finds any of those values in the sprite, again, these hard-coded hex code values, if it finds any of those values, then it's gonna swap it. So like this L color, it's gonna swap it out for this L color. So like this base here, this is the map base. You can see that it's all green colors, and it literally swaps out the base colors. You can see all of the like blue, gray baseline colors that exist in the sprite. I have them marked down here as the base, and then in the shader code, it compares, it looks for these colors and replaces it with the corresponding version that's in here. Like, this is a purple version, and this is a green version. And I think that what I am describing here is similar to what you're trying to accomplish with this, where you have the colors defined in a sprite, but I don't think that's necessary. The way I made it before was so dumb. Thank you guys first. You're not wasting your time. That's not dumb either. Because it's funny you mentioned that, because when you are learning and ramping up on the project, that's exactly the kind of stuff I want people to experience, where you try it one way, realize that it's not quite the right direction, and then you do it the right way. Because now that you struggled with it, Dan, for a little bit, now you've kind of internalized the lesson a little bit better. You'll remember next time, like, because like this is just an intuitive way to do it. I understand why you chose a direction like this, because you can take an image from one file and read the colors from it. Tone mapping, yeah, sure, that makes sense too. I think that tone mapping is probably something that's built into like engines, where you can provide a palette sheet and then base it off of that. Is the music in the game yet? I can't show the music yet. The music is so, the licensing aspect of it is so complicated that I can't even show it on stream at all. There's music in the demo, and a couple of the songs that are in the demo will return for the re-release, but I have new music that I've been working on. Thank you so much. No, thank you for the question. It was great. Yeah, that was a really good discussion. I'm gonna change this back to a smaller size, because that 9x9, let's see how 7x7 looks. Because I haven't actually looked at this for a while. Oh, we need to go to the World JSON, excuse me. Let me change this to 7x7. If the final game turned out to have this many maps, I think that would be amazing. I think that would be awesome. Have I shown that the sizes of these squares scales? I think I did. But I'm still gonna show it again because I like it. If I changed it to like 3x3, that's a lot less like space. I didn't want it to be a big empty bunch of squares, so I changed it. So it scales up the size based on how much space is available. Reminds me of Zelda 1. Yes, I would say that was a very big inspiration. Zelda 1's map is so smart and genius because it's just a grid of pixels and you can see which pixel you're at. It's genius. Do you know a good way to learn game art? Because I mean, it looks nice. Thank you. I mean, so the thing is, a lot of these sprites are not made specifically by me. I made like the character. I made the characters and the weapons, some of the props, but a lot of the tiles are from paid asset packs, and also I commissioned an artist, Beowulf, who made a bunch of these tiles, like these cliffside tiles, some of the ground tiles. I think the dirt tiles he did too. So a lot of these environment tiles are custom made by someone I commissioned. But to answer your question of how you improve at game art, is the only way is you have to produce a bunch of sprites. You have to produce a bunch of art, and it's going to be very ugly at first. It's the same as if you were learning how to paint. Like, if you were learning how to paint, the only way to learn is to produce some really bad paintings for a while. Like, they're going to be really ugly for like a year or two, but eventually they're going to get better. That's the only solution. Like, you have to do that. There are no tutorials, there's no courses, there's no videos you can follow. The only way to learn and get better is to make a bunch of sprites and just like put them in the game. So get used to having ugly sprites in your game for a little while, maybe for like a year, however long it takes for you to improve your skills. It's also a good idea to, I think it's fine to use like open source asset packs or paid asset packs as like starting points. Still give credit and use the licenses appropriately, but like I said, if I had to draw every single sprite in the screen from scratch, it would have taken a lot longer, and it wouldn't have looked as good. I'm glad that I commissioned the artist to make the cliffside tiles and the ground texture tiles. They look really, really nice. Normal and vector art is easier than pixel art? Maybe, I'm not sure. I think that there's some... the biggest thing that makes pixel art easy to work with is just that you have fewer... I'll say that a pro and con of pixel art is the constraints. Like, you only have 24 by 24 pixels to work with. That means you have to be very wise with it. But since you only have that many pixels to work with, that means you have fewer options, so you'll have less, like, analysis paralysis, but you also have to understand the style well, because you're so constrained. Like, when you have a full canvas where you can use freeform strokes, an artist is able to, like, use their entire imagination with no restrictions to produce the best work of art possible. But with pixel art, it's not like that at all. It's the opposite, where you only have so many pixels to work with. This isn't a very good example, but you only have so many pixels to work with, and you have to make that space work the best you can. Because if I was tasked with drawing a barrel in vector art, the process of creating the barrel would be wildly different than creating the pixel art barrel. I still think it would be harder to produce a good vector art barrel. That's the thing, is that maybe it's easier to produce vector art, but I think it's harder to produce very good looking pixel or vector art. Pixel art, I think that with enough time, you can make your pixel art look really good. The Zora song sounds like it's from Xenoblade. It really does, honestly. It gives me the same vibes. I'm doing my comp sci bachelor at the moment. I'm a bit scared about the job market. Any advice on that? Yeah, I'm with you. And if I was... So first of all, I am not in the industry anymore, but I do still read up on the news. I go on like Reddit and CS career questions, and I read up on things that people are saying. And with that in mind, if that's the only information I had, it would seem like the job market is kind of dire, like you were saying, is that you're hearing news and reports about how bad the job prospects are, and that would be scary. But what I want to mention is that they were saying the exact same thing when I was in school as well. 10 years ago, they were saying like, oh, it's over, there's no more jobs, you can't really get in anymore, there's no, like, the entry level market is dead. They were saying that back when I was in college too, and I bet it's worse now. Like, don't get me wrong, I want to be sympathetic of people's situations. I think that things are probably harder today than when I was in college 10 years ago. But what I'm getting at is, it was hard back then, and I was feeling the pressure and the scaredness to it. But the solution is to make it competitive, where if you realize that you are competing with everyone else in the market, then it makes it pretty clear what the objective needs to be. Is that if you are competing with every other comp sci major for the same jobs, the only way to get the job is to, like, outdo them in some way. So there's a few factors that can do that. There's the resume aspect. I would say most comp sci majors just go through college and they graduate and then they're done. And if you do that, just graduate with a degree, and you have nothing else on your resume besides the degree, you're screwed. That's not a good place to be in, because you're competing with a bunch of other people who have internships on their resume, or who have projects, or they published something, or they did anything. The people that show passion and interest, that's who gets the most odds of getting the job. Google's Genie made a dump down GTA 6 with one prompt. Yeah, I bet it's not very good. I mean, yeah, AI of course is coming for game development because it's in coding, it's in art. We were hearing about like Larian Studios using AI for their concept art process. It's here, and I understand why it's like a controversial topic and why people are resistant to it. I'm you know, like it is what it is. But with like, my only area of expertise is coding, and I use AI for coding for some specific things. I don't use it for any like art or things like that. I only really use it for coding. But it is something that we're gonna be seeing a lot more of in the future, if not now, like already. I was just showing a couple weeks ago how Steam recently changed their policy. How Steam has the AI policy where you have to disclose if you have AI usage in your game. But they recently changed it so AI tooling, like coding tools, like GitHub Copilot, for example, or the autocomplete agents, like you can say if, like this, like how it generates a bunch of code for you. And Steam recently updated their policy so that's more lax, because stuff like this, it's built into IDEs by default now, where finding a game or software project that doesn't use like Code Complete or some of the debugging tools or some of the, like, it's AI assisted tooling is what they call it. That's so common and ubiquitous now, and it's so useful that like trying to ban it doesn't really make sense. So they updated their policy to where the AI policy on Steam is mainly about like assets, visible products, things that, because I think that's mainly what gamers are considering and more concerned about most right now, is like it kind of feels a little dirty to play a game where all the assets are made with AI, especially if it's noticeable. That's probably going to change in the future, who knows. But I think something being useful makes it ethical. I think that does add a lot of validity to it, yeah. I still kind of stupid and do a lot of mistakes with code. There's a lot of issues in using proper good enough idea AI. So that's the thing is, if you told me that 1 year ago, I would completely agree with you, is that it's too stupid to be useful. Today, it's like, it's wild. It's wild how different it is in just 1 year, how different things have gotten. Where I don't really agree with you anymore that it makes a bunch of coding mistakes. It really doesn't. The only time it makes coding mistakes is when you don't give it enough context. So, and again, like 6 months ago, I would say, yeah, it makes like mistakes 75% of the time or something like that. But now it's so consistent that I just can't agree with that. Most of these AI to bounce ideas off of sometimes, or to compare some things. That's the thing, is that if you give an AI, like a coding AI, enough context, all of this stuff is just pure logic, and logic is kind of like a solved problem where it's able to produce a logical string of events that suit what your goals are, and it's able to do that very consistently now. It is so strange that less than a year ago it couldn't. I use AI to help with boilerplate code and annoying repetitive tasks. I think that's probably the most useful aspect for it, as long as it's not taken away from like the learning process or quality. This is the other thing about AI, is that I think that right now, at the moment, AI kind of has an association with lower quality. I think that if using AI results in lower quality for what you're working on, it's not worth it. And we're seeing that a lot right now, where people use it as like a shortcut to produce a final product, and that tends to be kind of sloppy. And the people who are intelligent with it, who use it for very like streamlined, predictable tasks, mundane tasks, it is useful for that. I feel like for larger games, there may be so much context needed to provide that it's hard for both you, the user, to provide enough to the AI, and for the AI to understand the bigger aspect, like RPG. You are completely right. And what you're describing is also a solved problem that, like, there's a reason why, all of these companies are pumping billions, like quite literally billions of dollars into AI development stuff, because like you're saying, there are shortcomings. And in the past few years, obviously there's so many problems with AI. If you used AI like 6 months ago, it would never gain enough context to do any complicated tasks. But today, they have added so many crazy features and tools that just flesh it out. So this Microsoft Foundry thing that I'm showing right now is meant to kind of address that thing that you're discussing. And Copilot isn't even that smart. This is what I'm saying. The AI agents are only as smart as the context that you give them. And this Foundry idea is meant to... you have multiple agents with different context. And this is not something that I use right now. I don't do this stuff at all. I just use the simple Copilot once in a while. But the whole idea is there's these big fleshed out tools where people will take their big complicated RPG, because that was the example that person gave, is like a big complicated RPG. And what they do is they create an agent for the UI, an agent for the enemy AI, they create an agent for the orchestration, they create an AI for the player controls, they create an AI for multiplayer and networking. And so they have this big network of big complex, like Azure hosted cloud complex data stuff. And all of these agents point to different nodes of context so that when you ask it a question, it uses this deeply connected system of nodes and logic to feed the prompts the context it needs. And like that's why it says like multi-agent planner. They put so much effort into making these things so robust. And that's where I think the big solution to the context problem is these big, crazy, fleshed out systems. How many years am I working on that particular game? I've been working on this dumb game for like 5 years now. It's ridiculous. Because it was Legend of Lua before, and Moonshire came out like 2.5 years ago. It might be over 5 years at this point. I regret using Windows 11 as long as Minecraft doesn't get an AI update. You're fine. Yeah, I understand. So that's the other thing is the AI hype train is really awkward. I think any use of AI is using to de-skill yourself. AI companies are not benevolent, and the tools are being subsidized heavily. I agree with you. Is that you are trading the experience for a final product. It reminds me of if you were working with a coworker, for example. Like let's say that I was deciding, do I want to hire another programmer for my game? And if I did hire another programmer for my game, and they focused on the UI and the level design code, and they were the ones that was working on it, the benefit is that I don't have to spend time on it. I can work on something else. It's less effort. That's the benefit of hiring someone else to do it, is that they can use their expertise to do that thing, and I can use my expertise on something else. But the downside of giving that task to them, as opposed to me doing it, is that if I do it, then I would learn from the experience. I would learn end-to-end how the code works. I would be forced to figure out all the complexities, overcome the challenges, and when I do reach that final product, I would be more informed and more familiar with all of the things that go into producing that part. But then the downside is that it took longer. So that's the big trade-off, is AI kind of is like a shortcut because you can tell it to produce code for you. But when you ask someone else to produce something for you, you're not really learning anything from that experience. You are really just benefiting from the final product. And that's not what you should be benefiting from when you're learning. When you're in the early phases, like when you're in the first couple years of development, you really can't afford to be giving up that stuff. You have to have those experiences, otherwise you're just gonna be screwed. For those small snow particles, are you just scaling like 16 by 16 down? No, there's no restriction to 16 by 16. The particles are literally like, I can actually pull them up. The snow particles literally are just very small sprites. There's no 16 by 16 constraint anywhere in the game besides the tiles. Like the environment tiles, I tend to stick with, where would this be? Effects and environment, maybe? Snow, here we go. Yeah, so it's a 3x3 sprite. And Pico OC, oh, I know, I love Amazing Mirror. Yeah, so it's a 3x3 sprite. So it doesn't have to scale down anything. And then when it's in the game, if you look really closely, you can see that sometimes it's bigger than other times. It has a bit of randomness. I can show that too. Entire project plus connected to a living GDD would be interesting, but it's more fun to solve on your own, and you learn so much more. Question then becomes, do we need to learn? I think we do need to learn, and yes, that is a good question. Is the biggest like catch to AI that we always talk about is that you don't learn. So if you don't learn from it, like that's a big reason not to use it. So then the counterpoint is, do you need to learn? I still think you do. I still think it's very important. Like, if I was trying to make this game with AI and I didn't know how to code already, it wouldn't work out. I'm so confident about that. I would be making so many mistakes because I catch so many problems. Like, we were talking earlier how, like, the AI makes mistakes, and it does, occasionally. And I do catch, like, personal choices that it makes that I don't like and things like that. If I didn't have the context and I didn't have the experience backing myself and all that experience and time I spent not using AI, I really feel like I would struggle hard. Very, very hard. I still think we need to learn. AI right now for is like a savant child. They can do amazing things that we can never imagine, but you still have to hold their hand when crossing the street. That's a really good way of putting it. I always say you have to keep it on a leash, because if you let it off the leash, it starts like making too many assumptions. There's Scratch for complete beginners, good for basics. Yeah, definitely. I love Scratch, and I love Snap, and I love Game Maker, the drag and drop coding, because it uses logical blocks. When you use Snap or Scratch to code, it really does work similar to this, where you have loops, you have variables, you have data, and you have operations and functions. It's all here, but it looks a little bit more complex when you're looking at text like this. Like Lua code, when viewed this way, looks more confusing than when you're viewing like a bunch of blocks stacked on top of each other. We really do need an AI mention counter. We really do need an AI like time cap so that I stop talking about it after like 5 minutes, because like it's a really common question, and it's also a topic that I do have an interest in. Like I'm gonna be honest. I think AI is very interesting, and I find it very well, it's cool, but it's also like concerning, right? Because we're talking about these problems that it has and how it's kind of infringing on the learning process. That, I think, is a really big problem and a very genuine concern I have for like up-and-coming developers. We had some people use AI in game project during education. Suddenly methods was renamed and projects broke. Copybots is dangerous. That's why, like, if I query a prompt for the project at all, this is advice in general, AI aside. If you are making changes to your code in any capacity, it's so important that you use source control. You use version control, like Git. Because, like, in this stream, I've made changes to a few files. I made changes to Slime, because I removed this animation that was causing problems. And I changed some aspects of... Oh, no, I added this forest JSON, and then I changed some aspects of world.json. But let's say that at the end of the stream, it turns out, actually, I probably shouldn't have added those things. That wasn't really necessary. So I'm going to undo that. Discard all 2 files. So what happened now is I undid that. The slime changes stayed. So like this change where I removed the animation, that's still there. I still removed that. But I undid the changes that I made to those other 2 JSON files. And the reason I'm pointing this out is because if you dare to have an AI agent make changes to your code, you need this. You need to be able to undo it. Because, like we're talking about, the AI agents make mistakes. And you will be furious if it makes a mistake to your code and you can't undo it. This version control, look, it keeps track of every change that I've made, and I can see which files were touched. I think I can even like open up the diff. Look, I can see which diff like the exact lines I changed per commit. And if you're working with an AI, it's going to make mistakes. like that's unavoidable. In the same way that humans make mistakes, by the way, humans make mistakes too. So you can't just blindly accept all of the changes that a human makes or that an AI makes and expect your code to be clean forever. You have to use version control, undo the mistakes, fix the problems, revert back to working versions. Because that's the thing, is that like if I'm doing all this crazy stuff in stream and then the game reaches a point where it's broken and I can't get it fixed, I can just like right click on this and say check out, to, you know, and then it'll go back to that. I can undo commits. If you can't undo, you'll dig yourself deeper in the hole trying to fix it instead. Definitely you will. Thankfully we had version control in this case. Love my Git. Oh, me too. It's huge. And not only that, if you want to go back in time, you can load an older version, do time lapse. I do that a lot for performance, because I can't pull up my GitHub right now, but when I'm working on my game, I frequently find times when I'm like, I build something out and then I notice that the performance suddenly gets really bad. For example, if I spawn a bunch of these guys, I notice that when I have too many of these guys on screen, it starts to lag the game. Like, look at that. You can see frames dropping like crazy. Really, really laggy. So, there's one trick that you can do to investigate this. Is right now, when I spawn all these characters, it lags the game. What I could do is I could go back in time to like a really, really old commit, like all the way down here, and check out this version from February 1st. That's not that long ago. Oh my gosh, look at all these commits. I have so many commits, and this is only February 1st. Oh, when was this from? This is from January 26th. I can't believe how many updates I make. But what I'm saying is you could just like go back in time to one of these commits, run the game in that scenario, and see if the slowdown still happens. See if the bug exists in an old version. It's basically a debugging tactic. If someone reports a bug in your code, and you can run the current version and experience the bug, you can reproduce the bug, it's a good idea to open up a really old version of your code to see if the bug exists there as well. Because if the bug exists in a really old version of your code too, then you know that the bug must exist in some of the oldest code. It must have been like a long-standing feature that just was never caught. But if you can reproduce the bug in a current version, but not an old version, then that gives you some guidance that's like, oh, it must have been something recent that broke the code. In Lua, do you do hashtag to make a note or maybe // You actually do --. Where is it? Like this. You do --/ or --/ square bracket. Do I have unit tests in your code base? No, at the moment I actually don't have any automated tests. I do want to do that. So what Wilson was asking about is unit tests and end-to-end tests. They're with a big project like this, and I think you even mentioned this earlier in the stream, how when you make changes to one piece of code, it can have unexpected effects on other pieces of code. So even if I change like this spare player mobs section, even though I might think it's only, oh, this is only going to impact the spare player mobs, actually it might impact more than that. You never know. So that's why even for small changes, it really is a good idea to have a set of automated tests. It's just a bunch of automated scripts, or maybe it even runs the game and runs some specific actions. And it compares the output from those tests to what it expects to receive, and that's how it determines if there's any like regressions. Is these tests are able to run automatically, and it can point out if anything has changed. I asked of tests because the bugs are easier to spot with them. They definitely are. They definitely are, but at the same time, you have to make sure your tests are thorough. And when you spend time writing tests, that means you are spending time not working on the game. And this is a problem that I experienced on on the job at lots of places too, because writing tests is an important part of the process. But if you have a deadline due tomorrow to have something at the door, like you have a really important meeting, you have to have this code ready to show off at the meeting. You know, writing the tests is a lower priority task compared to getting the code done and working, or getting a bug fixed. Like, if you're fixing a bug, it's really important to get that bug fixed and get the fix at the door so people aren't experiencing the bug anymore. But ideally, you would also write tests with it, so that in the future, these tests will run and catch the regression again. But when you spend time writing tests, that's time taken away from something else. That's always a consideration for anything that you work on. And at the moment, I haven't reached the point where I really want to allocate that time. Because also, when you write tests, it's almost like a snapshot of the current state of the game. And I want the game to be a little bit more fleshed out before I have the tests put in place. Watching this while doing my project? Awesome. What's the tech stack for the game? I'm using SFML for the moment. Anybody with the same boat? I actually don't know what SFML is, but the tech stack is just Love 2D Framework, which is built on C++. And then the game code is a bunch of Lua files. And that's it. There's not really any other stack. For networking, it connects to Steam. So Steam itself is part of the stack, you could say. Because for the multiplayer networking features, it connects to like the online server. Probably with the number of followers you have, and with some modders, you could ask people to trust to run tests. Yeah, definitely. And really, when the game was more actively being tested, because like there was a period like a couple years ago when I was posting regular updates and people were testing and posting bugs a lot. I really do appreciate the community for that aspect. A combination of all those things is probably for the best. This song always makes me sleepy. A little bit. I definitely get it. It's really good for rendering graphics super quickly. That makes sense. I'm new here. IDKF doing by yourself. Yeah, I work on this game by myself. So I do commission a few people for help. I commission Wolf, who's in the chat, for help with mods or for mod tasks in the chat and for Discord stuff. I commission Tris Pixels and Beowulf and Ellie Sprites for help with artwork stuff. V I hired for some illustration stuff. A couple of my local friends for some local editing things, you know. So I have some other people that I'm commissioning. I also pay for like paid asset packs and they get credit in the credits. So the credits is going to have a lot of names in it. It's more than just me. But at the same time, it is me doing the vast majority of the work. I'm doing all the coding and all of the sounds and music, a lot of the artwork. I do a lot of the editing for the artwork, all the design and writing and level design. There's so much stuff that I'm doing myself. But when I notice that there's a field or a section that someone else could do better than me, for example, pixel art. I can do pixel art well. I can make good sprites, but sometimes I need help, especially for the bigger, more complex sprites. Let me find a good example. What would be a good example? Like the parallax, I guess. Like this sprite of the castle on the hill is a sprite that Tris Pixels made, and this level of detail and shading and quality is so nice. It's beautiful. And this is beyond my skill level. The mammoth is good. I think Ellie drew the mammoth and then I made edits to the mammoth. But I think this is a better demonstration of like the very high fidelity pixel art that Tris Pixels is super good at, that I'm not quite there yet. You add some Hollow Knight music to the playlist. There is 2 Silk Song songs on the playlist, but that's it. It's not very many. I think there's more than that. Here, let me pull it up. I think that I have Green Path as well from Hollow Knight. So in the miscellaneous folder, we have Hollow Knight City of Tears, we have Hollow Knight Green Path, we have Hollow Knight we have Silksong Bellheart and Silksong Bilewater. Oh, and Silksong Coral Chambers and Silksong Fleetopia. We actually have quite a few Hollow Knight songs. But yeah, from Hollow Knight 1, it's City of Tears and Green Path. I love my playlist, by the way. I love the music ID. Oh, also, did you notice in the music ID above my head, normally it has little music notes like next to the song title, but I had to take those out because on Mac, they weren't displaying. They were just not rendering properly. It was very weird. I'm not sure what happened. I might make a Steam account and use someone else's laptop to play a demo for this. Awesome. That's very nice of you to say. I do, towards the end, like later on in development, I really do think I'm going to try and get the game on mobile. Like, that's going to be a very big task, and I'm not quite at the point where I want to do that, but that is something that I want to probably do. Tech stack, not dumb. It's the collection of software you're using to get whatever it is done. In web programming, it'd be like HTML, CSS, JS, Node.js, Postgres. So yeah, so tech stack it's like a software development term that's like an all-encompassing term that includes all the software that you're working with. It uses the word stack because software is organized in like a node structure. So you could say like, this is the database stack or the data stack where all of the player data gets stored. And then this is going to be the physics stack. And then this is going to be the front end stack. And the idea is that these different modules kind of interact with each other. And they all have different like focuses. And web development is the most common way that people talk about stacks. I shouldn't say most common, but it is a very common way because a tech stack would be like the database, and then the backend AI or the backend APIs that you get called, and then this would be the website, the front end. So in like a web design format, it really does feel like a stack where things kind of go from bottom to top, where the people up here are like the customers. This is the top of the stack, and the people down here are the developers, the engineers. And it's like a flow of getting information from the customers down to the tech stack and back up. Because a customer will interact with the website up here on the front end, and then that data gets sent to the tech stack, to the APIs, and then it sends that from here down to like the database, and then the database does some operations, which then sends that data back to the APIs, which then updates the website. Because when you interact with a website, it's sending data from here, the website, all the way down here to the database, and then the database sends data all the way back up to the website so that you can see the result of what you did. I can show an example of this in real time if I go to bugs.chalicade.com. So this is a website that I made a while back for tracking bugs on this game. It hasn't really been used yet, but this uses a stack like what I just described. How there's a database that stores all the bugs. There are APIs that get called that sends the data to the database, and then there's the website code where you can visually see the data that we're interacting with. How would I make my game on my laptop then continue on my desktop? Someone said something about a GitHub host, but I don't know how to do that. On my YouTube channel, I have a GitHub tutorial, and that exactly answers your question. So if you go to Chalicade, I'm talking about save your files, get in GitHub set up in 7 minutes. Check out this save your files video. Because that's what I do, is all the code that I write on any device gets checked into Git and then gets hosted on GitHub. So like anytime I make these changes, all of this stuff I'm showing here, this stuff is in GitHub. All of these like change diffs are backed up in GitHub. And the way it works across multiple devices, like you said, you're working on your laptop, you work on your desktop. If you have it checked in to Git, then as soon as you open up a different computer and you go up here and you just do like pull, it's gonna pull any changes that happened on a different device and you'll see them in this list and you can check it out. Toby Fox music is such a bop. Oh my gosh, yes. I really love Deltarune music and I really love Undertale music. I think he did an awesome job with that. Things still need to get. Yeah, I mean, Git takes some getting used to. And it's funny, I didn't learn how to use Git until after I graduated from college. Actually, it was after I started at Microsoft because my first job out of college didn't use Git. It used a different version control. Like, that seems so backwards, doesn't it? They should teach how to use this stuff in college. Every single company uses version control. It's sad that I had to learn how to do it on the fly. Toby Fox inspired me so much. Although it's so kind of you to include me in that list because Toby Fox inspires me so much. Like, I was playing Undertale when I was in college and thinking, man, this is like, I want to do something just like this. But yeah, on that note, I think that I'm ready to call it quits for the day. It was a very good stream. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. And I'll be back next week with some more updates. I think that I'm going to be working on mobs and enemy AI for next week. I think I said that last week, but I ended up working on like the world design and the level layouts. But we'll see. Next week I'll have more stuff to show, and I'm glad that this stream went really smoothly. Thank you so much for being here. Do I play Pokemon? Yes, I do. I'm a big Pokemon fan. I play all the games. And I will be back next week for yet another Moonshire Monday. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone. Oh, I don't have my outro screen because I'm on a different computer, but I'll have to get that started for next week. Okay, bye.